Good evening, Nigeria. You're watching Politics on Sunday, coming to you from TVC News Studio in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. I am Femi Akonde. Our focus today is the presidency of Bola Tinubu and its recent activities. Well, the presidency is already giving Nigerians a glimpse into what to expect next year as it prepares to take the 2024 spending plan for appropriation in the National Assembly. But in the interim, President Tinubu's administration has been busy with trying to meet the immediate needs of poor Nigerians through the launch of the Renewed Hope conditional cash transfer and other interventions that may be rolled out in the near future. Well, this past week in the presidency, several appointments were announced to fill top positions in government agencies and parastatals, and more will also be announced in the coming days. Some people again have said President Bola Tinubu may have ticked the right box by the waiver on the no work, no pay order he granted to the National Association of Resident Doctors and the Academic Staff Union of Universities. But we do not know if this will be the beginning of a love affair between the federal government and these critical unions. We will attempt to put all of this into perspective and get answers to questions. But first, we will take a quick break before I introduce my guests. Well, my guest today is the special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on media and publicity, Chief Ajuri Ngelale. Welcome to the program.
Truly a privilege to be with you.
Yeah, there's so much, always a lot to talk about when we sit to have this kind of conversations. But let's cut the chase now and go straight to business. Let's start with how the week started for President Bola Tinubu. He chaired the Federal Executive Council meeting, and that meeting approved the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. This is a projection of how he intends to achieve his economic agenda. But looking at the assumptions made in that MTEV, how realistic is it?
When you look at the administrative history of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you would find that the president has always been defined by having, yes, grand ambition, but his grand ambition and vision are always tempered with a healthy dose of pragmatism. And I think that's what defines the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework, as well as the projection of the 2024 federal budget. When you look at the numbers and you understand that in the first 6 months of this year, the Federal Inland Revenue Service generated about 5.5 trillion naira up to June. We're on course for over 11 trillion naira for this year. That covers on its own the entire non-debt recurrent expenditure projection within the 2024 federal budget, for example. So the president is being very pragmatic with respect to what we can afford to do, what we must do, and how we are going to take the Renewed Hope agenda and move it from being a broad vision into being implementable, executable, fully financed a set of projects that can be totally funded through realistic sources of financing that are being made available to the federal government of Nigeria. So yes, the vision is big, but the pragmatism and the practicality is in place to ensure that those visions actually translate into the types of manifest deliverables that Nigerians expected when they elected President Bola Ahmed Tinubu into office.
Okay. Recently, what has been the practice is that the federal government borrows to finance the budget, and there has been this outcry about Nigeria's debt ceiling and how high Nigeria's debt profile is going. How will this administration reduce borrowing, bearing in mind that there's a need to finance these budgets?
No, it's a fantastic question, and I think that is why the premium has been placed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the need for us to carry the private sector along. We recognize that the vision of this administration with respect to infrastructural provision, with respect to social investment provision, with respect to upgrading our security forces and their capacity to defend our country will depend on an effective collaboration with the private sector, ensuring that we are creating the environment within the country that will enable a large-scale heavy industry to come into the country, which is why you're seeing, Mr. President, move around the world. Securing a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar investments across multiple sectors of the Nigerian economy. It's all predicated on the understanding of the president that the federal budget will never be enough to, on its own, fill the gaps left by approximately 50 years worth of maladministration and kind of the types of wrongful governance practices that we've seen over the years, both military and civilian. He recognizes that for us to expeditiously bridge those gaps, we're going to have to leverage on tens of billions of dollars worth of financing that will inevitably come from the private sector as we work to actively and proactively create the environment for them to bring their money, not just in terms of our monetary and fiscal policies, but in terms of our soft infrastructure with regulatory reforms and our hard infrastructure with respect to roads, railways, airports, seaports, power plants, dams, and all of the associated infrastructure that heavy industry is looking at when they make decisions about whether or not they're going to invest in Nigeria, as against investing in Kenya, Morocco, South Africa, or other African countries that we are competing with as we move, as the continent moves toward implementing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This is the vision of the president, and he's working day and night, every single day, to ensure that Nigeria and Nigerians maximally benefit from that process.
And we have also seen his aggressive drive for foreign direct investment.
Absolutely.
He has traveled around, held bilateral meetings and all of that. And Nigerians are asking, or is it too early to ask, if these meetings have yielded any results?
Well, I think that the deliverables speak for themselves. Obviously, Nigerians are well aware of the fact, as Reuters and Bloomberg and many other international and local news agencies reported, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did secure investment pledges of up to $14 billion in India on the sidelines of the G20 with a slate of Indian investors by virtue of his active outreach to them with the Chief Executive Officer roundtable that he conducted, really bringing to the table both Indian investors as well as large-scale Nigerian industrialists to make sure that there's a handshake between new investors coming in and existing investors who know the terrain, who can help new investors effectively come in and know where they can best do business. In addition to that, obviously, it's no secret that we just secured heavy investments during the representation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu by the Vice President, Vice President Kashim Shettima in China during the Belt and Road Initiative, where it was announced that we will be completing the Abuja to Kano high-speed rail line, standard gauge, as well as the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri Eastern Corridor Railway. We believe that by partnering with the private sector and partnering also bilaterally with countries on a government-to-government basis, we are going to be able to secure the funds and the partnerships that will allow us to effectively complement the federal budget to fund the priority areas of our administration to execute on the renewed hope mandate of Mr. President.
And one of the big decisions or moves of this presidency was the removal of fuel subsidy. A lot of people have commended the president for that, both within and outside the country. But well, the brunt is really felt within the country, and we're seeing government effort to try to cushion these hardship caused as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy. We saw the launch of the renewed hope conditional cash transfer and other interventions that we hear will be rolled out in the coming days and weeks. But the gap between the rich and the poor, the inequality also seems to be widening, and people are asking, when will the generality of Nigerians, or a large percentage of Nigerians, switch to the good life?
For us, our focus has always been on ensuring that we focus our policies, our programs, and our initiatives on uplifting the living conditions of those at the bottom rung of the economic ladder in the country. And that is why we have rolled out very aggressively, as you mentioned, the Renewed Hope conditional cash transfer program, where we're targeting 15 million households. You know which part of which segment of society we're targeting with that program. We are looking at the most vulnerable. We are looking at the lowest income to lower income households across our country, ensuring that there's equitable spread across all local government areas of the Federation, and making sure that the people who need help the most get it the quickest. That is the focus of our administration with respect to our social investments. And that's going to cut across even our healthcare interventions and some of the other very important interventions that will be announced shortly. I can say that there is currently a major approval that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has just given to the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare with respect to the establishment of a new social trust fund that is going to be dealing with all segments of the living standard of our people at the bottom rung of the economic ladder. I'm not just talking about cash in hand. I'm not just talking about food supply. I'm also talking about basic and primary health care delivery. I'm talking about ensuring that our senior citizens who may not have been privileged throughout their lives economically are in a position to benefit from a social safety net that actually caters to them in such a way that they can have access to medications in a timely fashion, have access to primary and secondary health facilities in a timely fashion, an affordable fashion, in a way that is covered by the institutions of government. These are the major reforms that we want to implement, and I believe in the coming weeks there will be more news with respect to how that's going to be rolled out. And Mr. President is very, very committed to investing massively in the welfare of our people, whether young, whether middle-aged, or whether old. Everybody matters under the programs of this administration.
Yes, and FEC also approved the implementation of the agreement between the labor unions and the federal government. And there's also a caveat that there must be evidence of implementation within 30 days.
That's right.
Has the countdown started? The 30 days countdown, has it started? And what kind of evidence would Nigerians see, feel, and touch within this 30-day timeline?
Well, look, let's be clear about the fact that within the 30-day timeline, we've already seen the very tangible steps that have been taken by officials of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration to ensure that we fulfill every aspect of that agreement. So, for example, the rollout of the conditional cash transfer to 15 million households was a major stipulation, a major feature of that agreement. We have started rolling that out. When we look at the requirements of certain labor unions, you would recall that just yesterday I signed a statement announcing that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved for two major unions that had conducted industrial actions in recent times, the National Association of Resident Doctors. He has provided and approved on the presidential prerogative of mercy a waiver to ensure that the no work, no pay order instituted against that union during their 17-day strike, which held late July into the middle part of August, that effectively the Accountant General of the Federation will release the salaries which were previously withheld during that period. But because, again, the president is a pragmatist, he is someone who says, yes, I will negotiate with you, I will meet you halfway, but you will meet me halfway. And part of the unions meeting him halfway was that he said, we're going to have a mandate to ensure that there is a document of understanding between the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment and, in the case of the National Association of Resident Doctors, the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, with the labor unions of not just NARD, but also other health sector unions, to ensure that this would be the last time that such a waiver would be granted to any of those unions.
Okay, that's why you put partial waiver.
No. That's a separate one. So I'm talking about the full waiver that was given to the National Association of Resident Doctors. But what we're saying is there was a requirement that the president insisted upon to ensure that the unions agree on paper signed that they will not be putting the government in a position again where they would ever need such a waiver. Then on the other end, when we talk about the partial waiver, that is with respect to the no work, no pay order that was instituted against the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, during their 8-month strike, which held between February and I believe October 2022. Yeah. Essentially, we said it's a partial waiver because you may be aware that their salaries were withheld for the 8 months of their strike. So what Mr. President has agreed to is to say, look, because of the fact that he is acutely aware of the economic challenges in the country and the bite that's presently facing Nigerian families as a result of the implementation of much needed economic reforms in the country, he's saying because he understands the pain, he's ready to pay 4 months out of the 8 months in exchange for the previously striking ASU staff members to sign on to that requirement that says that they will not in the future seek such a waiver in view of any type of industrial action. So 4 months out of the 8 months will be paid to them. And hopefully families around the country will be feeling the impact of that as well.
But you know, some other unions are also beginning to kick some CVs as selective and even threatening to go on strike, maybe to get the president's attention and get this kind of waivers too.
Well, I think this is a big part of the reason why this administration, unlike several decades of administration, civilian and military, we're taking a proactive effort to this. We're taking proactive steps to deal with these issues. We're not waiting for other labor unions across the sectors of our economy to come out and strike before we get to the table with them. We're in ongoing negotiations and discussions with several unions around the country, dealing with their problems in a proactive fashion so that it doesn't get to that point. What we are saying is that with the documents of understanding that will be struck in view of the waivers that have been put in place by Mr. President to deal with some of the withheld salaries of these union members, we believe that that should put closure to the era of incessant strike actions, which obviously adversely impact the lives of ordinary Nigerians across the country, and we can be dealing with them on a proactive basis and operating in good faith. I think the last point I want to make on this is that the president chose to provide those no work, no pay waivers as a direct result of his pragmatic assessment that the unions involved had demonstrated good faith in carrying out to the letter the implementation of the agreements that had been struck between the federal government and those unions. And it's a signal to anyone else engaging in good faith with the federal government that if you operate in good faith, this is an administration that will operate in good faith, and everybody knows this about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He is a man of his word, both in politics and in governance. If he tells you he will do it, he will do it.
Yes, we live in an era where there's so much distortion of information, and you are the president's spokesman. How do you cut through the noise when there is so much disinformation, deliberate misinformation about government's intentions and programs? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the first and most important thing that you do is if you make a mistake, you acknowledge it. Governments are large operations. I've always likened government to a large cruise liner. The captain's in the pit and he's turning the wheel, but as he's turning the wheel, it can take a very long time before the cruise liner actually begins to turn. That is how the federal government of Nigeria operates. There are so many actors within a federal government that it only takes a few to make certain blunders to create an impression about the entire organization. So that's the nature of government. It's not always easy, but the president is someone who has proven that he can take large government structures, as he did in Lagos State, and get everybody, very talented and competent young men and women, and also experienced men and women at the table, define his vision for them, lay it out, and put them in a position to successfully execute. He did it in Lagos. He's going to do it at the federal level. But when we talk about how we deal with misinformation, it's about ensuring that you level with Nigerians. Nigerians are brilliant people. You're not going to deceive them. They've seen it all right? They've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you're not going to deceive them. You level with them. You say, we're going to do this, and you do your utmost best to ensure that you fulfill what you've said. It's only when you do that that the trust in government by our people will increase. But it's going to take time to win back so much of the lost trust and confidence that had been lost by successive administrations, civilian and military, over the last several decades. But that is our approach. Day by day, level with people, tell them where you make a mistake, tell them where you succeeded, and let them be the judge based on fact and not anything else.
Okay, what I'm even maybe driving at now is sometimes a clear fabrication of stories about the government or people in government which are entirely not true, but
fake news
fake news, and you see it out there. And how does it get to you and the government, and how do you try to tackle all of these things and put bare facts out there?
Well, look, first of all, it involves having effective leadership within the regulatory institutions within the information management space. That's going to be very important to this. There's no way around that. Law enforcement and regulatory enforcement agencies are established for a reason. Nobody can do their job for them. So the new leaders in that sector are going to be closely watched. And the expectation is going to be that they are going to tighten up and ensure that while we do not in any form or fashion impinge upon the right of Nigerians to their freedom of expression, that we draw a fine line between fake news, deliberate fake news production and distribution, and protecting the free speech of Nigerians. And I think a major part of this is going to come down to the fact that this is not a government against fake news mission. This is a Nigeria against fake news mission. It is not in the interest of any Nigerian. There's no Nigerian citizen out there in whose interest it is for us to have a system in which some political or economic actors somewhere are being sponsored to create news that is intended to deceive Nigerians. At the end of the day, that's who is being deceived. So we want Nigerians to be carried along in any war on fake news. We don't want to do it alone. And we are saying that if it's not in the interest of Nigerians and it's not in the interest of those who are entrusted with the power to provide services to them, then we need to join hands with Nigerians and eradicate fake news from our information management environment.
Yeah. Looking at President Bola Tinubu's appointment, it has given an unprecedented prominence to the youth demography and women, and a lot of people also expect to see that exuberance also manifest in the way they discharge their duties. Nigerians are watching and are assessing, of course, and from your own point of view as somebody in government, would you say, I know you will say yes, they're living up to expectations, but what really, how really are they setting out to meet all of these expectations? Because Mr. President also said that he will be closely watching.
Well, I think you wouldn't rightly predict my response on that, because I take a more nuanced view in the sense that it is not just to say that people have hit the ground running. There is no government in which every minister is going to display the same level of competence, the same level of commitment, the same level of but it is the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Tinubu to ensure that where there are those lagging behind, he does everything he can to support them and put them in a position to succeed. If after he has done so, they are still not meeting up with his required standard of performance, this is a man who is not afraid to fire anybody. He has proven it in Lagos, he's proven it in his private sector experience, and he will be the same as president. You are either going to put up or you're going to shut up. And that's how our administration is going to run under his leadership. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, I would say with respect to youth participation, that the government is still young. In fact, it was just the other day that the Minister of Youth and the Minister of State for Youth were inaugurated into the cabinet. We are watching because many of the ministers across the board, I mean, if you look, for example, at the Honorable Minister of Interior, Honorable Tunji, you would have seen the remarkable work he's done to expeditiously deal with the long-standing backlog of passports in the hundreds of thousands. In just a few months, he's been able to, by sheer innovative thinking and doing, has been able to clear that. That's the kind of proactive leadership that I think young people are ready to provide. And in the information space, young people are filling up. the presidential media advisory team. They are out there. They're pushing very hard to ensure that Nigerians have, correct and accurate and timely information. I think just yesterday we broke a State House record for press releases in a day with 8 press releases in a day. That's not a testament to me doing a fantastic job. It's a testament more to the fact that we are working for a president in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is working extremely hard, harder than any of his predecessors, with no insults to them. But he is determined to manifest and deliver on the Renewed Hope agenda, and we're all fortunate to be part of that larger mission to restore Nigeria and bring hope back to our people.
When President Bola Tinubu assumed office May 29, he hit the ground running, like he said, and the villa became very busy. The presidential villa became very busy. We saw investors, people come in and go out from all walks of life. He said he was running an opened up policy. We saw him hold these meetings and engagements, and it also increases approval rating. But some people are saying it seems along the line, maybe as ministers got appointed, it seems he slowed down. Could it mean that he allowed the ministers to begin to continue with the implementation of policies, or what really is the situation?
I believe, Femi, that the move of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to go around the world to court investment, you have to remember that our president went to New Delhi. From New Delhi, he went to the UAE. From the UAE, essentially, he came back to Nigeria for just a few days before going to New York, then to Paris. This is a man who has been on the move, and he has been on the move with an intention. He's not going around just taking pictures with other foreign leaders. He's going around having those nitty-gritty backroom meetings with individual investors, telling them, look, what are your problems? What are the concerns you have about the Nigerian environment? I'll connect you with this minister. I'll connect you with that official, making sure that the nuts and bolts of the investments are dealt with so that they feel good about bringing their money in. I mean, this is the hands-on leadership the president's providing. So I think people have misconstrued the time spent abroad courting these investments, which again have been reported by international and domestic media, to have being some form of a slowdown and all of that. What we're saying is the president has done that. There's more to come with Germany, with Saudi Arabia, with many others that will be reported on in the next few weeks and months. We'll be very open about those processes as they unfold with respect to the investments that will be coming from those meetings. But what I can say is that the president is on ground. He is more active now than ever, because his cabinet is in place. We're getting ready to hold the Federal Executive Council meeting on Monday. He's going to be also providing a very important address at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG event as well, really clarifying and laying out his vision for the economy in the midst of so many investors and stakeholders. This is the leadership the president is providing. There is no slowdown, and we will continue to accelerate and not slow down in the weeks and months to come.
All right, then a fine place to leave it. Chief Ajuri Ngelale, Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on media and publicity, telling us about the president's plans, programs, and policies, and how he has set out with his team to achieving this. Thank you for your time on the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's our program for today. Do remember you can see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. Also, follow me on X. My handle is @Femi Akonde TVC. Thank you for watching. See you next time.